Son Excellence, Monsieur le Président de la République.
Excellency, Mr. President of the Republic, Madam Prime Minister, Madam President Spokesperson of the National Assembly, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and you're welcome. To start with, let me ask, are you fine? You're too shy. Are you fine? So I can sense the energy in the room. So I'm delighted to open this ceremony and especially to see how you responded present to take part in the second edition of AFIS. I am Hamatullah Gudiabi, Director of AFIS with 15 years of experience in great banks, insurance companies on the continent. We're all together thanks to Jeune Afrique Media Group for 2 days for this important event in Africa. Of course, it's not an event in the sector of insurance, it's not an event of the banking sector, it's not an event of fintech or other capital summits. It is bringing together all financial industries of Africa and is also a platform of public-private dialogue that has as aim to meet 4 goals. First, contribute to the development of a financial sector in Africa. Secondly, place financial industry at the helm of the project of AFCFTA. Third, ensure sustainable development of 4 economies. And fourth, give a voice to the financial industry in Africa during debates on international regulation. We are all convinced that in this assembly we have resources to meet these goals. Our industry is a dynamic one. It was showing improvement for years now. We have professionals that are very ambitious, that are pushing us to financial inclusion. Our industry has demonstrated again and again and once again during the publication of results of the third quarter of 2022 its capacity to resist external shocks. Our industry must be ready in 2023 to face pressures when it comes to profitability, liquidity, and being able to find resources on market. Do we have a difficult market? Our industry must be able also to deal with pressures and generate capitals. Also, our industry must make sure of facing the various challenges we have when we come to credit and other financial aspects. We are going to debate during these 2 days on the various difficulties, and our role here is to make sure that your conclusions bring financial inclusion so that our economy in Africa be much more competitive at the national and international level. Our second question, is it possible? Can we do that together, please? Yes, I like your enthusiasm and I am also convinced, and the person that's going to climb here is much more convinced than I. I'm going to invite Mr. New Benamed, President Director General of Jeune Afrique Media Group, to come here. Help me welcome Ami Benamed.
Quelle belle audience. Monsieur le Président de la...
Mr. President of the Republic, Madam Prime Minister, ladies and gentlemen, governors of central bank, ministers, presidents of regulatory authorities and representatives of various institutions, dear participants, dear friends, welcome to this first physical edition of the Africa Financial Industry Summit. We are delighted to welcome you here in Lomé. Thank you, Mr. President, and we also thank the entire Togolese government for the support and hospitality shown during the organization of this first conference. Speaking of the first edition, this date represents an anniversary of this group and also for the group. 10 years ago, in November 2012, we are organizing the Africa CEO Forum with a strong conviction that it was necessary to create a platform with the aim of serving the African private sector to make it the engine of growth policies and accelerate regional integration. The success was an immediate one, and since then, this platform brings together nearly 1,800 participants each year that are business leaders, senior executives, investors, and today it is with the same strong conviction that we commit ourselves and that we wish to commit you to this new project that is AFIS, African Financial Industry Summit. The conviction that in this world in crisis our continent must make its economic sovereignty an absolute priority. The conviction that to succeed in this challenge there is a priority industry, an industry that is central to growth, instrumental to the common market project, an industry that can be a catalyst for the transformations to which the continent aspires. I am of course talking about the financial services industry. And our wish is that at the end of this first edition of the 2 days that we spent together, each and every one of you will leave convinced that by engaging in a demanding public-private dialogue, we can collectively draw up an ambitious roadmap to radically accelerate the development of financial services and make this sector the engine of economic transformation that our continent needs. So, this roadmap comes against a difficult macroeconomic backdrop that has already weakened some African economies in recent months, a context that represents a threat to the continent, a threat because of the risk it poses to international investors' perception of Africa, and a threat to the soundness of a financial industry impacted by rising interest rates, capital scarcity, weakening currencies, and increasing challenges. That's why we designed with the support of the AFIS Advisory Board, which is made up of some 40 members whom I would like to thank, and most of them are here. We have drawn up a combat program, an ambitious one, that brings light on a certain number of stakes that are fundamental to our roadmap. The first one is the one of influence, the one that we are going to win when we come on the international scene and discuss of solutions for Africa. First, to avoid being a victim of what is happening around the world and is not taken out into account. Secondly, we have the development aspect, the development of our African financial groups. The withdrawal of certain international players is an extraordinary, actually, I think, opportunity to develop our national champions. They are the pride of the continent and indispensable lever of economic sovereignty, and we must make them even more powerful groups with all the necessary expertise so that they are world-class and world-class players. Third, financing. This famous sinews of war, which is becoming scarcer in this crisis context. We're going to discuss these 2 days. I would have liked to keep you a third day, sorry, but we're going to talk about during these 2 days the various ways to increase our resources, ways to improve financial inclusion, collection, how to improve our financial uh, opportunities like the green finance that is becoming the first hub of international liquidity. We are going to talk about capitals, investments, and we are going to talk about a free movement of capitals. We are building the AFCFTA, and it is very important that African institutional investment can be better deployed without barriers in Nigeria, Egypt, Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, of course. In any case, where it will have the best hopes of profitability to encourage the collection of investors, bringing them on our continent. We are going to talk about actually of innovation and disruption, and we have in our midst about 15 of the best African fintech with us. They have attracted more than 2 billion USD in investment by 2021. They are led by ambitious and innovative young entrepreneurs. We will discuss with them the bridges to be created with the rest of the financial industry. Finally, last important topic, there is a common market, the AFCFTA. If we want to successfully build a true Africa of financial services, as Europe has done with its common market, if actually we want to build that Africa of financial services, we need to engage in a regular and in-depth public dialogue, and that is what this conference is all about. AFIS, bringing you together bankers, insurance, telecom operators, fintech, capital market players, regulators, because if we want to meet these challenges tomorrow, we must work together today. So, to illustrate this ambition, vision, teamwork, what it can help us to do, I'm going to lay emphasis on two recent initiatives that have been unveiled by the president of Afrexim Bank, Mr. Benedict Orama, and by Mr. Felix Edo Amenuve. The first is the payment platform. There is an integrated platform for the continent, and also uh, AELP Link, the interconnection platform for 7 African stock exchanges. These two initiatives are actually the type of project on which we must work together and on which we want AFIS to be a catalyst tomorrow. Promoters of these initiatives are all among us, and I think they deserve our applause. So, before giving the floor to the next speaker, I would like to thank those who made this conference available. And first of all, I would like to reiterate my thanks to the President of the Republic. I know that you have project to strengthen Togo as a financial hub. I have no doubt that this will be a success given the availability, commitment, and efficiency shown by all our collaborators with which we've worked in the organization of this conference. And also, I want to say that having this great number of investors and investment prescribers, and I would like to share this idea that has been shared by one of your collaborators, and it summarizes what you know in Togo. She told me, Mr. Benjamin, don't worry, in Togo the job is always done, and actually the job is always done. I would like also to thank our co-host, Mr. Mark Tajab, the Director General of IFC, and its Vice President for Africa, Sergio Pimenta, as well as all the collaborators of this institution, which has been at the forefront of the development of African in financial services, and which today is one of its pillars. I would like to warmly thank all our partners who have trusted us since this first edition. I would like to thank all the teams because they are going to help us to in this project all through the year, because as I told you, AFIS is an organization, and I also want to thank all the teams of Jeune Afrique Media Group who have prepared this conference with passion, energy, dedication. Thank you all. Good conference and have a nice day in Lome. Thanks. Once more, Sammy, thank you for your speech. I'm going to tackle one aspect that you've talked about, our partners, our historic partners, because the Africa Financial Industry Summit will not exist without our partners. And one of our partners, historic partners, our co-host, is he from the World Bank, is helping us in all the events, and he's also here with us. So I would like to invite the Vice President of Africa of IFC, and let me welcome Mr. Seju Pimenta.
Excellence, Monsieur le Président.
Excellency, President of the Republic, Madam Prime Minister, Madam President of financial institutions, dear friends, dear guests, good morning. I'm very delighted to be this morning with you and represent the IFC, being the co-host of this Africa Financial Industry Summit. I would like to say that we are here this morning and for these 2 days in a very important moment for Africa, and I know that Ami has presented it very well in his introduction. The continent is doing everything to come out of the effect of COVID-19 and is also dealing with some challenges like the increase in prices of foods, oil, etc. And we are, however, seeing the potential of Africa. And I think that these 2 days are going to be days to discuss about the financial industry, and all of you can contribute in transforming this potential into reality and to develop actually this continent. I think as we all know, the continent has everything to be in front of technological innovation, agricultural industries, and the financial sector has a great role to play in the transformation of this Africa. So this moment is coming at the nick of time, and the financial institution of Africa must mobilize. They can be a catalyst of solution in context of crisis, helping to sustain the transformation of this continent. And this morning, I would like to focus on some major priority sectors for the Africa continent. We are talking about the SMEs and all the various sectors. I'm going to mention also some of the contribution of IFC, and as you know, there is the greatest development institution dedicated to Africa. I'm going to mention also things that we are going to do together. These themes are very important for the financial institutions in Africa, and I know it will be at the helm of our debates during these 2 days. To start with the question of SMEs, it is very important to create a condition of a sustainable development and adapting our look on the SMEs. We know they are all important for world economy because they help bring out family from poverty and strengthen our various communities. That is also very important in our emerging countries where the SMEs generate about 90% of new jobs and 70% of GDP. I'm going to take the example also of Togo, where in the last 5 years, the support of IFC helped to give about 600 loan to SMEs, and it was about 2 million euros. We are also working with three banking institutions in Togo to support trade of SMEs. We all know that COVID-19 was a great harm to this growth system. And let me tell you that IFC brought about $1 billion to SMEs in Africa, and with our various partners, ADB and other institutions, we are working for alliance for African partnership to support growth and success of SMEs, especially for women and young entrepreneurs. A certain number of projects have been financed already, and during the 2 days we are going to discuss largely on it. I'm going to mention also the question of climate, because if you are encouraging financing SMEs, it is very important to invest in microfinance institution and other financial institution, not only banks, in order to mobilize resources facing the climate question. We're bringing investment in green projects in South Africa, for instance, with the support of AFC. The Standard Bank of Africa has emitted the first green investment in its client portfolio, especially for SMEs. And last year, IFC launched a partnership with a bank in Ghana to help in climate and environment projects. I think this is a subject that has the potential to transform the economy of Africa, and we must work together on this. Allow me also to mention the question of commerce financing, that is very important. In Africa, the deficit of trade is about $90 billion. The inflation, the problems of food security brought a lot of issue. As Ami said, it is an occasion for African Bank to start developing and financing the trade in Africa, for it is very important. Instead of being at the backstage, we must help the African continent to preserve the jobs. In the last financial year, we have $9.7 billion helping in financing trade, and the beneficial are the Vista Bank in West Africa that was a beneficiary of this program. AFC have $24 million to bank in Guinea and Burkina Faso to help them finance import of goods, foods, and other items. This week, our colleagues are going to talk about our initiative for the value chain in Africa. It is a project of billions of dollars that will help to reduce the deficit of financing in trade, and that is about in 20 economies that are fragile ones. Talking about digital transformation, being digital will be very important for Africa companies, for them to take part and transform the international value chain, reduce the cost of trade, and improve the productivity of companies. Altogether, we must help our employees to support digitalization and bring innovation to financial sector. Finally, I will not finish without mentioning the development of capital markets. I know so many people are working on this matter in this room. It is a very important topic to mobilize resources and bring them for the development of the continent. I'm delighted of being here. I'm already happy for our debates during these 2 days. I'm sure that we are going to find solution all together to help in transforming the continent. Thank you for your kind attention.
Merci Sergio.
Thank you so much, Sergio. Thank you, Sergio. And once again, we'd like to thank the AFC team for having organized this event. Thank you so much to all the teams as you hear. We were well welcome in the Togolese Republic, and you're so kind, the Togolese. We were well welcomed by Togo, and Togo has become very quickly a financial center, hosting so many DFIs and major financial institutions and major commercial Pan-African banks are headquartered here. I'm going to ask you to rise up, please, so that we can welcome His Excellency, the Head of State, the President, Mr. Four Esozimna Nsingbe. Chair, President, you have the floor, please.
C'est bon. Merci. Avant de lire mon discours,
Before reading my speech, traditionally, we have been delivering welcome addresses when the private and the public sector meet. But due to time constraint, I know you've made major sacrifices. You've tried hard to come. We've been able to bring you together. And so on behalf of the Togolese people, I would like to wish you a warm welcome in our capital city. Madam Prime Minister, Madam Speaker of the National Assembly, ladies and gentlemen, presidents of institutions of the Republic, the Director General of Jeune Afrique Media Group, the Vice President of IFC, ladies and gentlemen, ministers, ladies and gentlemen, ambassadors, heads of diplomatic missions as well as consular missions, ladies and gentlemen, governors of central banks, regulators of insurance sector, ladies and gentlemen, heads of financial markets, MPs, Director Generals of public and private companies, dear participants, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, you all know that Togo has a long tradition of welcoming delegations, financial institutions, and our capital city is regarded as an important stakeholders in areas of financial activities in the region. Most of you are pretty much used to the capital city of Lome, and I'm happy to acknowledge this morning majority of whom I've had several discussions this year. Just close to the Aerobank's Sikare headquarters, opportunities to stay in our country are numerous, but the global situation is not that rose. I share the feeling that our discussions during this forum on the African financial sector comes at a very important time. You've said it, COVID-19 and the war in Ukraine disrupted the structure of global economy, and there are several breaks in our economies. In April 2020, Brent was at $20, and that skyrocketed to $100. June stabilized $190. How about interest rate? Late 2021, the market estimated the probability will exceed 2.50% in December 2022 was now. Majority of investors expected rates below 0.75% as we speak today. Almost all investors anticipate rates around 4.5%. As far as I'm concerned, it will be dangerous to underestimate the consequences of these disruptions, in particular for the most fragile citizens and also all the financial and economic stakeholders involved in the development of our continent. Day in, day out, we're trying hard to deal with the various aspects of this crisis in the world, have to do with security, climate, inflation, disruptions, these misbalance. Responses quite often are difficult to come up with, and better still to implement them, because there are several issues that are intertwined. Issues of financing of action programs remain a critical issue at stake. The opportunities to discuss are numerous, and I'm certain that the two-day deliberation will provide the critical light in making decisions by governments and financial institutions globally who are important partners as far as we're concerned. But let me project myself into the future. As we think to recover, we can see a transformed financial landscape. So this summit is a very important opportunity to think about the future of the financial market. And this future, we will build it together, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delivering this speech with a strong conviction. A future of African finance will be built on close collaboration among the governments as well as the financial sector. I'll come back to the role of the state in rebuilding the financial state sector in Africa. But let me start by recalling a reality. Without the private sector, our financial system will lose its raison d'etre, because the role of a banker, your profession, is not just to fund, but to fund good projects. And you know pretty well the main lesson in the business community, opportunities to lose money are numerous. The profession of a banker is dedicated fully to separate the bad projects from the good ones. Without this being smart, then you will lose money. After 2 years of continuous crisis, wasting money cannot be a luxury we can afford. Quality investment are the basis of African development, because without this, how do we increase our ability to transform our industry? How do we build ports, roads, energy plants, if necessary, for the mission of AFCFTA? Ladies and gentlemen, you know how is therefore your responsibility. Your efforts and sacrifice will depend part of our prosperity. Togo claims that linkage with the private sector in the banking sector. The state should support you in that endeavor. Our success, the common one, depends on that collaboration among the governments and the financial sector. On our part, I can say 4 major missions. First of all, the state should promote a very attractive business environment. How many investors barely came to our continent and see a business climate which is not conducive? But the reality is different. It keeps on increasing day in, day out, be it tax, legal stability, or administrative constraints. Progress are considerable, even if I acknowledge we still have a long way to go. But what has been done, we must make it known. IFC knows without mitigation of irrational worries, very valid, viable investment will be innovated. Unscrupulous investors. We need to favor information, and that is the second main mission. Not just information on the environment of business, information on business itself. It's by building a project bank that the state will be your best ally. There are several foreign investors saying that offers for viable projects in the pipeline are quite often limited. Quite aware of this increasing demand, we are working tirelessly to allow good feeling of investment opportunities. So Togo developed its 2025 roadmap. In that roadmap, we developed a quality project bankable offer, and so we need to pretty well know the ground. We believe that this is the missing link when it comes to financing by the private sector, for now, we will not relent in jumping on opportunities through PPP, which remain a very relevant tool for financing in developing countries. The third mission is that the state must play its part as the referee, in particularly right when it comes to sustainable investment development. Investors in developed countries increasingly are looking for opportunities of responsible investment. Their shareholders have been asking for it, and their customers wish it. As evidence, high amounts are based on environmental, social, and governance criteria. They have reached considerable amounts of $36,000 billion, and yet only a poor part of these investments are earmarked for developing countries. Aside information, as I said earlier on, we have that issue of externality. Now, talking about the sustainable, responsible nature of an investment, you should take into account issues that have to do with pollution, lack of diversity, etc. And indeed, public power plays its rightful part as a referee in terms of investment, creation of jobs, and when it comes to environmental constraints.
S'il profite à tous les acteurs financiers, le secteur public reste avant tout l'allié des éléments les plus innovants de la communauté financière. Et les exemples.
Financial communities, and there are many examples in Brazil where the PIX payment programs initiated in 2018 and launched in 2020 by the central bank has succeeded in a year to convince 67% of the adult and 60% of bankerized companies, these corporations between the central bank, the government and the private sector, has allowed in a very short time to reduce the cost of transactions and fast-track bankerizations of the Brazilian economy. By the same token, in India, the UPI programs of the central bank has revolutionized the payment systems in close collaboration with the private sector. Managed by the central bank and the private sector, the system recorded 8.757 billion transactions for the early months of August 2022. And this is what we hope for the PAP system that Mr. Bernadette alluded to. We wish the same success for that. Even here in Togo, the novelty programs and the EID program show the close link between public stakeholders' actions and innovation. May I, ladies and gentlemen, to close by saying this. As all the crises before this one, the current crisis is opening ways for its resolutions. A new macroeconomic balance will be found and optimism will be back on track. This future, we have to build it together. Together, we will identify the major projects that will stretch the continents, and all together will attract foreign investors looking for sustainable investment, and all together we will promote the revolution of the fintech sector in Africa. It is on this note of optimism and that I would like to wish you all a fruitful deliberation over this conference. Thank you.